It's a magical, mystical time. It's Anecdotal Adventures.
Hello and welcome to the first episode of Anecdotal Adventures reads, nope, not the first episode, the 6th episode. I know what I'm doing. I'm a professional. We've messed up this intro twice in a row now with Arc 5s where we forgot to introduce ourselves. I'm Ashley. This is my
I'm
co-host.
Cassidy.
We are peak professional podcasters here.
Oh yes, come on. I mean, we only filmed like 7. I held up 8 fingers. Only filmed like 7 things.
See, feel our professionalism flow through the audio here. Anyway, this is a show where me and Cassidy sit down, read Worm, an arc every episode, and we talk about it and how much we love it. This week we are reading Arc 6, Tangle, and last week we read Arc 5, Hive, in which so many bad things happened.
Oh, my heart. My heart.
Taylor's going pretty much full supervillain.
I don't blame her. You can't trust authority when it treats you like that.
Oh my god. Just reading that and thinking about it makes me feel ill. Which shows how well written it is. Anyway, enough of us singing Worm's praises. We have to actually get on to read this next arc.
So that we can sing its praises.
More. That's what the show is. So we will see you all when we get back from having read Arc 6. Hello, and we are back from Arc 6, Tangle, and oh boy, was it a wild ride. What did you think, Cassidy?
Everything got so much worse.
I think that's the theme of this book. Every arc things seem to be getting so much worse. You know how we said things were bad at Arc 5? Things were bad in Arc 6.
Totally rooting for Taylor, but then that interlude just, was like a kick to the side, dude.
Really took the breath out of you. But let us start at 6.1, where we meet up with the Undersiders taking more of the ABB on. There's some casual conversation, flirting over the course of kicking the poor, unpowered folks' butt into submission. These guys are clearly not the capable people that Coil's men are. Their butts are, there's 20-1, and their butts are getting handed to them. They're losing so much.
So bad.
So bad. I mean, Tattletale's just lounging on a car with a gun. She's like, oh, I'll let my friends handle this. I don't even need to do anything.
Probably just picked off the stragglers.
Probably. And we find out at the end of this chapter as they are driving home, and Brian is inviting Taylor to come help him set up some furniture, which we will get to.
Wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
Later by himself, and Lisa totally gets on that immediately. She's like, oh, he invited you to set up furniture, huh?
Furniture.
Wink, wink. It's
nudge,
really
nudge.
nice to see Lisa saying what we all feel.
I got to some points this chapter because I've been trying to keep a tally of how many times Taylor hits on Gru in her brain. And there were some paragraphs in this chapter where I'm like, should I count each of those individual statements, or is the whole paragraph a tally? And I started doing paragraphs, and I'm still up to 15, 16, 17 times.
We'll get to the deep romantic intimacy that was Taylor eyeing up Brian, and Brian maybe eyeing her up back.
Hopefully. I'm rooting for her.
So badly. But we find out some of the powers of the members of the Travelers. Trickster has the ability to switch the places of things that are of roughly equivalent mass. Genesis is a tinker that creates remotely controlled projections that can be solid, which gives her the appearance of a shapeshifter. And Ballistic can make anything into a projectile that she touches. It will rocket off. Travelers seem like they'd be a pain to fight. We know they are a pain to fight from later in the chapter, but they seem like they'd be a real pain to fight.
Especially all of those things together.
That's such a bad combination. It's just like, here's someone that can be anything and dangerous and not as even, it really isn't even present in the fight, so they have no fear of death. And then Trickster, who's just gonna, oh, you have a weapon? Well, okay, take this trash can instead or whatever. Oh, you are a physical person? I'm gonna drop you in the hands of this monster over here by switching places of a cement column with you. That's what he did to Armus Master, which was just brilliant.
I'm imagining him dropping whoever off with. And then
What did he say?
I'm imagining Trickster doing the switchy swap thing, but instead of delivering the person to Genesis to Ballistic, because how funny would it be if you were suddenly a new place and moving 80 miles an hour that way?
That's a little lethal. I think for the most of the villains' tastes, outwardly at least, that they don't want to get taken down by the Protectorate by, in this case at least, killing a top hero. We wouldn't have felt bad though.
Could have done. No,
Arms Master, as Bitch called him later, is a real dickhole. Anyway, going back, Lisa found all this out from her time working with the Travelers. And we kind of move on. Taylor is not staying at home anymore. She's staying pretty much completely at the loft. And eventually goes to meet up with Brian after Lisa gives her the talking to of, you like Brian. Brian probably likes you, maybe. No promises.
Wink wonk.
But, I mean, go do something about that. Here, I'll even pick out your clothes. Lisa, being the wingman everyone needs.
Everyone needs a wingman like Lisa.
And this is the chapter where she talks about not being in a relationship because there's no mystery to it.
Which, way she explained it, I totally get. That would suck if you met someone and you're like, I have a list of your character flaws. I suddenly...
Also, it's just mentioned that she's just casually going through the texts on Taylor's phone. Like, that's just a casual mention. That's something Lisa does all the time. Not worth of note, clearly. And she also talks about a limitation of her power in that she struggles to read motivations and emotions. Reading people is hard, she says. Which is a good excuse to why she doesn't know about Taylor yet, right? Right? She doesn't know about Taylor yet?
Yeah, and I have a feeling that is the Manton effect working.
Yeah, that could be a limitation of her power, that it doesn't work on like living things that often. It's a good observation. But
I got a compliment.
She goes to Taylor goes to hang out with Brian.
With Brian.
The most sexual furniture building section.
He held the leg while I screwed it on. Wow.
Their hands touched and their shoulders pressed together and their faces were 2 inches from each other. And then Aisha slams open the door and was like, I'm sorry, I'm not interrupting anything, right? Aisha, Brian's little sister, in all her glory, marches into the room having rescheduled the meeting. So Brian had the wrong time. She came earlier than was expected at the social worker, which leads to an awkward situation of which we find out that Brian has told, or his sister has at least figured out, that he is a supervillain, and by process of elimination, she knows that means that Taylor is a supervillain, and she's like flaunting it, throwing her knowledge all over the place, just to kind of see if she can get a reaction from Taylor.
Which she does not, so go Taylor, hold your ground, Tika.
She does not, but like, man, what did you think of that?
That is about on par with what having a sibling is like.
I feel like I'm not that mean to my older sister.
You and your family I feel like you don't truly grasp what white trash means. And my family has dipped into white trash quite a few times. So I feel like you will you understand what having a sister is like, but not the true like sibling nature. Like you've never come to blows with your sister, I don't think.
No, me and my sister, when we were little, though, we fought like she-devils, and of course, as previously admitted by me, I was a tiny supervillain. So we said very mean things to each other, but we never like fought physically. No evidence that can be no trace.
Mm. Me and my siblings figured out young that punches to the stomach left fewer bruises and hurt so much more. And that was about how the dynamic in our household went for a very long time. So I totally understand the Aisha bursting in and being like, "You expected me." Like
Uh,
I've.
but what did we think of Ayesha as a character and a person?
I feel like she was portrayed very realistically for someone who went through the stuff that she did.
Yeah, and it's also noted that it's been noted in the world that people who have siblings or parents that have superpowers are more likely to get them. So it explains why Brian kind of let her in on the, hey, I have powers, so you have a higher likelihood of getting them, so you're not surprised or anything.
Yeah.
But we move on quickly from there as Lisa interrupts this meeting with a text that says, hey, you really need to get back. Shit's going down. And their boss wants them to take a new job. Specifically, he wants them to embarrass more than a third of the heroes in Brockton Bay and some of the most important, powerful people in the city at this party thing that's going on.
And the best part is, those important people include Emma and her bitch-faced dad.
Oh, that was so good. The favorite line, if a few of the biting or stinging bugs went Emma's way, it wasn't on a conscious decision on my part.
No, totally not conscious. They were reacting to pure emotion, and there's no way Taylor would ever think of doing something like that.
But what did we think of this whole fight when they march in to this gallery to break up the fight, and immediately they take control of the battlefield, and everyone spreads out to kind of do their own thing. They steal containment foam from the PRT officers to quickly incapacitate the wards, and then they have to deal with the big boys, the Protectorate, who the team does a very good job against most of the Protectorate.
I think it's 3 people that they ended up struggling with. Nope, only 2. I think
only two. It's technically only 1, because them struggling with Miss Militia lasted like 3 seconds before Regent got a grip and like took Miss Militia down and kept her down by just making her heave her guts up over and over again until she was just dry heaving and continuing to try to heave up her stomach.
Which is the worst reaction to have.
So bad. These people are supervillains.
Yeah.
There were probably perfectly nice people at this party. I feel bad for Clockblocker again.
Yeah, that
traumatized twice by bugs. I'm glad they were taken out of the fight with the containment foam early. I would have felt real bad if we had any more ward torture.
Yeah, Clockblocker definitely does not need a repeat of that, and I hope that he makes the active choice to never ever go against Taylor in a fight again.
I hope he's wise enough to know. Or at least if he does go. I know I'm not supposed to be rooting against Taylor, but have something prepared. Get some bug spray.
I mean, are we really rooting against Taylor if we want the fight to be more interesting,
We're not. We're definitely not. Taylor's smart. She'll find another way to counter him.
It's rooting for character growth. It's not rooting against her.
Yes.
Yeah.
I believe in Taylor. She can overcome any challenge that is thrown her way, including Arms Master, who is a dickhole.
A dickhole.
Who, it is proven by Lisa's ability, doesn't care about his team, only cares about his reputation and his status, which is used against him the entire fight, with Gru bringing up and dropping the darkness at opportune moments so the crowd catches the Protectorate doing bad things. They even at one moment play up when Miss Militia is holding Regent hostage and Arms Master knocked Lisa down. Like, she was trying to surrender, and you have a knife pointed at my neck, and oh, you dastardly heroes.
They're like, whoa, this is excessive force. We were giving up.
Yeah, they really accomplished their goal in humiliating the heroes. I think even after that point, if the heroes had taken them in and lost, whatever their boss wanted them to do, it would have been done by then.
I honestly, the media is gonna tear Armsmaster a new one.
Do we feel bad about that, though?
No, not really. I feel bad about it for his teammates, because it's gonna be like Armsmaster and team, Miss Militia and team, using excessive force against teenage villains.
I feel bad for Dauntless,
And
who
then
he made go.
failed.
I feel bad for Dauntless, his teammate specifically, who he made go on patrol, not at the party, to watch over the boards that weren't there, and then made him wear headphones so he couldn't hear Lisa telling her that, hey, Armsmaster hates you, hates your guts, like he really hates you.
Which was master manipulation on Armsmaster part.
I would have really liked Dauntless to have heard that and, you know, maybe punched Armsmaster in the face, give him some comeuppance, but we get it later. Anyway, the fight goes on. We get some awesome lines from Taylor and some conversation between Armsmaster and her, where Armsmaster's like, no, I am not going to listen to you and your spy crap anymore. It really does become crap by the end of this arc. And it's just going to capture it, and at some point he drops the line, this was over when you stepped in the room, because he has researched the team and knows how to counter you, exactly. And Taylor spits that line back at him when she reveals she is a living, breathing hornet's nest and destroys him with bugs.
Because she's still early enough in like developing her own style that him making simulations is unreliable, because that's something that she's still working out herself.
Yeah, Taylor's adaptable. That's one of the things we note about her, and she changes things up a lot. You never know what to expect from her, which I think is what makes her terrifying. And our favorite.
I love her so much.
I forgot to mention something that was brought up in my notes. There was a casual mention in the talk of the news of, oh, you know, that missing child that we heard about that disappeared a couple weeks before the ABB thing happened, you know, around the type of the bank robbery, no big deal or anything. Still missing, presumed dead now, but still missing, no one knows. Keeping track of that. It's been brought up 3 times. We've hit the beat in the story where this is the third beat. Something's coming of this.
Hold on. Missing. I'm writing it down on a sticky note and putting it on the board.
We also get a brief mention of the triumvirate, made of Alexandria, Legend, and Eidolon, who are the top 3 protectorate. Just thought I'd mention them late. I'd bring them up as well. But the Undersiders get away with embarrassing the heroes. They're chased by Dauntless and Armsmaster to the parking garage, where the Travelers reveal themselves. The Travelers reveal themselves by Trickster switching Armsmaster with a block of concrete into the hands of Trainwreck, who just methodically beats him into a car over and over and over again.
When you methodically beat someone into a car, for some reason I'm imagining face to hood of car, pause to see if they're still breathing, and then continuing putting face to hood of car.
I don't know if Trainwreck would even check. But Trainwreck also takes the halberd that Armsmaster spent so much time putting technology into, snaps it in half, and crushes it into fine dust particles.
Woo!
I mean, I don't like him, but I can feel sympathy for the fact that was probably years of work just completely trashed.
Years of, literally, admittedly stolen technology. He just has the ability to implement it into one thing.
He has the ability to compact technology. And the Protectorate shares resources with each other, so I think calling it stolen may be overreaching when they share tech with each other.
It still makes him lame as fuck.
I will politely disagree. I think he's an asshole, but he's a good hero. Like, he's fairly strong. He's the only one giving the Undersiders challenge for a good portion of the fight.
Yeah. And then he gets taken out as soon as he doesn't have a halberd.
Against the Travelers, who are new to the city, and he probably doesn't have files on them.
That's true.
Completely
Expect the unexpected.
dispatched, because the Travelers, as well as the two solo heroes, Circus and Trainwreck, reveal themselves to be working under one man, the Undersiders' boss. And a man we have met previously. And we've praised his underlings in the past, and we will continue to in the future. It is Coil.
So technically, this entire story is about praising Coil's underlings, because the Undersiders are his underlings. That sniper team was just boss as fuck.
We found the theme of this story. Coil hires good underlings.
And
There's
when
one
you got
thing-
money to burn.
If there's one thing we can praise about Coil's supervillainy, is that he's efficient with his hirelings. Anyway, Coil reveals his power as he invites the Undersiders into a car, and he has them all flip coins and manipulates, not the probabilities, he denies probability manipulation, says he manipulates destinies, controls outcomes.
Which is alarming. Yeah, no, just no.
Yeah, he had people like going to the had people planted to win the election, right? If he can control outcomes, that's in the bag, right? Anything that's rigged, like voting, that's in the bag for him.
Not only that, if he can control outcomes, he can control the answer to the questions he is asking to the Undersiders.
Probably, and he can also measure what he says. I know more about how power works, how Coil's powers works, because I've read the story. But even still, Coil's power is terrifying. Like, how many times did he manipulate outcomes to make sure the Undersiders would succeed? How many times did something... He said he did not work to hurt them. In fact, he actively worked the opposite that. Like, he has helped them in scenarios.
But it's also said that he expected them to fail at some point, so it shows that his ability has limitations.
Yeah, and I think it's more to the fact that if a situation is doomed to only happen one way, like if they are doomed to failure, he cannot help them. But
so if there's even a small chance
he might be able to manipulate, push it in that direction. I'm theorizing like I don't know anything about Coil's power right now.
I wonder.
I mean, none of what I have said will be revealed, I don't think, later in the story, because Coil is... we do get an interlude with him, I think. And the way his power works is interesting. So there's lots, like Lisa's power, there's room for speculation. But he has a bunch of hirelings in the city, and he reveals that the Travelers are working under him because he agreed to help them provide a temporary solution and look for a permanent solution to a problem everyone in the Travelers is currently having. No more specifics than that. But there's that. That's interesting and totally won't be important later.
And ominous as shit.
There's so many things in the story that's ominous as shit. Speaking of ominous, the supervillain banker. The Number Man.
The Numbers Man!
That's great.
It sounds dumb in everyday situations, but if you were making a deal with someone like Coil and a real supervillain deal, and he goes, "Hold on, I need to consult with the Numbers Man." You would honestly, you'd be like, "Okay, that's kind of dope as fuck." I'm not gonna lie.
And he's a supervillain banker. The name is perfect. He just handles money that is from supervillains. That's pretty great. I'm a fan of the idea of the number man, and we haven't even like met him yet.
Yeah, and imagine how lucrative that is. Like,
If we think Coil is
literally
rich,
was like,
how rich is
oh
the
yeah.
number man?
And he's just a glorified accountant. He just wears a mask while he's at work.
Anyway, Coil offers them a position in his group because he has a bigger goal than just pulling small jobs and making money. He wants the city.
Bum, bum, bum.
He even admits it's like, oh, it's cliche, it's a regular supervillain goal, but no, I'm not just going after organized crime, I am going after everything. And I have already have the dominoes set up. They're already falling. Like, my plan's going to succeed, probably whether you join me or not. But I am offering you position.
Mostly because I don't want you to ever end up being against me, but you know.
Yeah. As, like, territory holders, which is interesting, because that would imply they have to, like, control a territory in such a way to, like, protect it and manage it, which is not the Undersider's skill set.
He did say he would supply them with, like, anything they needed to help.
Maybe. I think for such a smart man, he's risking an awful lot on the Undersiders, so I'm sure there's like 3 backup plans here that we're not seeing.
Yeah.
Coil has been referred to as a chess master type villain, so I'm sure he's 12 steps ahead of us.
And also, he's probably the in-story insert of Wildbow the author, not gonna lie. Just being like, oh yes, I control destinies. I'm telling everything in this situation exactly how I want it, and everything will do what I say. Is an author brain.
I'm not going to agree with you. I'm not going to outwardly disagree with you, but we'll talk more about this later. Actually, I am going to outwardly disagree with you, but that's with future knowledge in mind, so I can't argue with you.
That means I've won this turn.
So you win this round, but you have won the battle, but you have not won the war.
Would your disagreement be on like which character is Wildbow making himself, or?
Anyway, so I think that Coil is a sufficiently scary villain, because I don't think there's anything more scary than a villain who is completely calm, who knows what he's doing, who has people around him that he has wrapped around his finger, not out of fear, but out of respect and a willingness, not like Bakura, who ruled with, as she said, fear and a healthy amount of unpredictability. Coil gives you what you want, and in return, you do stuff for him in a very calm, measured way.
Which is how it works in the real world.
Which
if a
only
Bond
makes
villain
him
just
more
started paying people off,
it only makes him more threatening that he has such a stable grasp on how people work and how to actually gain people's loyalty.
he's already proved himself very, very intelligent. So
he's good at knowing what people want, as shown. He already has Lisa and Brian under his thumb because he's helping Brian with the Aisha situation, and he's had Lisa under his thumb for who knows how long. Bought her off. She's completely on his side. He agrees to help Rachel with her dogs that she's been rescuing.
Which, yay! I'm totally for that, and so I hope Rachel joins up just so she can achieve that.
He offers Regent power and notoriety enough to step out under the thumb of his father, whatever that means. We get a little more.
Knows exactly what that means.
I do know exactly what this means, but instead of focusing on that, we get a lot more of Regent in this chapter, which we'll go over when we do what you think of every character at the end. Mm-hmm. But he doesn't have anything prepared for Taylor. And Taylor tells him, well, for me, I just want you to make the city better. And I think this is where Coil shows that he's, like, manipulative. I think he's doing this on purpose. Being like, oh, I'm going to do that anyway. I was going to do that anyway. That's not something you needed to ask me of, but I feel bad if that was the thing you got out of it. Which is sort of the thing that Taylor wanted to hear, that she needed to hear to make the decision that she was going to later in the arc.
which gave her the only reason she hadn't turned them in yet was because she's like, if I have more information, I can make the city a better place. But she lost all faith in Armsmaster in this chapter. Miss Militia didn't help out much either. And now she's been given a reason to think that this bad guy can offer her exactly what she wants. So.
Yeah. And, I think the fact that Emma was with the heroes, brushing arms with people she hated, I think that really cemented something here that was like, oh, these are not people that I can put my trust in if these are the company they keep.
Since Emma is supposed to be suspended and in trouble for horrible acts of bullying, and her dad bought them tickets, or didn't buy them tickets, probably got awarded tickets to a fancy-ass party with a bunch of superheroes.
Yes. We are not a fan of Emma or her family members here on the Anecdotal Adventures Reads Worm podcast. It's not something we're a fan of. But he tells the Undersiders that they have a week, no later than a week, to make their decision, and he sends them off, telling them to go make their decision, and they decide to make it in the morning. But more things happen before the morning. Taylor goes back home and is cornered by her dad, who wants answers. He knows she's almost missed a month of school. She's failing everything. And he pushes her for answers. He says, I've been too focused on being your friend and not focused enough on being your parent. And Taylor comes to a realization while she's trapped in a corner that she wants to be friends with the Undersiders, that she likes them, that none of her justifications hold. She's first doubting herself, saying things like, had I let myself gradually slip into a bad spot because of my lack of perspective beyond what was going on inside my own head? Yes, Taylor, yes, you have, and you continue to do so. Anyway.
You moonwalked down that slope a while ago, and we all knew what was happening.
And I think now you're getting ready to, swan dive into it and start, swimming joyously with your Undersiders friends, playing, beach volleyball in there. Marco Polo, maybe.
But unfortunately, I don't think I'm not a fan of this situation.
It makes
sense. I'm
sense.
actually rooting for her.
Yeah, but when I first read the story, I remember thinking, man, this happened fast. This change of heart happened in 6 arcs. I have 20 to go. I thought this was going to be a thing, and it's no longer a thing.
Which means this is just a story about Taylor becoming a badass supervillain. I'm totally for it.
We would be totally for this if Worm was a story about Taylor becoming a badass supervillain. I mean, Shorty is technically a badass supervillain. She took on a third of Brockton Bay's heroes with her team.
I mean, she technically has fallen into villainy. She has quite a few felonies under her belt. But if she does end up doing what she intends to, which my confidence in that decision is waning a little bit, she does end up helping clean up the streets of Brockton Bay. Is she a villain? Or is she a vigilante? She's just a really shitty vigilante.
One of the theses of this story is do the wrong things for the right reasons. Or another way, doing bad things for the sake of a good outcome. Which I think Coil being the leader, mysterious, shadowy leader of the Undersiders plays into that, because that is his thing. He says, I am not a good person, but I want to make the city better.
And I love how he admits, no, I'm a prideful man, and if this city went to shit under my leadership, I would be kind of affronted. So it's gotta be better.
He's not doing it for selfless reasons. He's doing it because, look, if I'm gonna take over either way, if it just fails because I took leadership, I could not stand for that.
Which, appreciate the honesty. It was a little more than I bargained for.
Taylor makes the call. She burns the letter she wrote that would confess everything to her dad over the oven, which I think is like the final nail in the coffin for will betray the undersiders.
She's literally burning it down.
Yeah.
Actually physically burning it down.
She pulls out her phone in front of her dad, which is a huge deal because he didn't know she had one. Texts Lisa, basically gives her dad a goodbye, and leaves to go live officially
with a bunch of supervillains. As a supervillain.
As a supervillain. Wow.
With all her supervillain friends. And she's gonna start spending her supervillain money.
She has so much money.
So much money. $250,000 and then some.
She is living the dream life. Again, who said crime doesn't pay?
But in reality, it doesn't. Fictional crime pays really well. Real crime does not.
Maybe we should say super-powered crime pays. When there's a banker named the Number Man running around, crime pays.
In this universe. With real crime, you make just enough to get by. And for some people, that's okay.
We leave Taylor off there. And we go to the interlude. Where Paige, otherwise known as Canary, has been sentenced to life in the birdcage. Along with the likes of Bakuda and Lung, who are currently being transported there.
I'm trying to contain the anger and resentment for the system that is failing these people. Failing them.
It is, but for the sake of being a devil's advocate.
I hate it when you start stuff with that sentence.
I'm very good at being a devil's advocate.
Always my personal life too. At least this one's not personal.
It's not. So looking at it from this perspective of the powerless, of people that don't have powers, we don't know how Canary was like advertising her abilities and things, but she was performing regularly in front of huge crowds of people. She goes backstage, she uses her ability accidentally on her ex-boyfriend.
In the best way possible.
Go fuck yourself.
The best way possible.
And
he hurt himself.
And he storms off, almost killed himself. She almost got accused of attempted murder. She was not found guilty on that front, but was found guilty on charges of aggravated assault with a parahuman ability and sexual assault.
Dumbest.
We get some of the glimpse into the PRT's classification system with one of the higher numbers, as Canary is a master 8. She can make you do anything after she sings it, pretty much. Sure, her power gets going. And for people who cannot read minds, for people who are regular and normal, that's terrifying. She could do anything she wants. She could not go to a normal prison without being a huge flight risk, and it would just not be sustainable to keep her contained in the proper manner. We know from being inside Paige's head that she's a good person, fundamentally. She even said, I would not run if they didn't put me in restraints. I just want to be treated like I'm a person, which is understandable, because she's not being treated like a person in this. She's being treated like an animal.
Literally muzzled. Literally muzzled. They muzzled a human being. A human being with powers, I get it, but literally muzzled her.
A power that stems from her voice.
What
would you do in that situation?
They muzzled her, they chained her, they put her arms in buckets.
She did say that the chains and stuff was super unnecessary and that her lawyer was just really crappy and that's why she got those.
And she didn't even get a chance to speak for herself. She maybe didn't have to physically speak for herself, but there's no evidence that her powers could work through writing. So she could have, if they had given her the liberty of explaining herself, she probably could have gotten off with a lesser sentence.
Yeah, she was denied of her rights. But this was, I think, less about Paige and more about, as the judge said, making a point. Because I think master abilities, in particular, abilities that can control and manipulate other humans, are kind of reviled in the Cape community because they're so dangerous. So someone committing even an accidental crime, such as this with one, is super dangerous, and they're setting a precedent. here. That is what this legal system is doing. They're setting a precedent for being harsher on people with powers that can control other human beings. Viewing that as more dangerous.
And I understand the legality of that, but it has been said that people who are specialized in parahuman studies do understand trigger events. It's mentioned that if you took a class on it, you'd probably understand it.
Yeah, but there's the idea of if a bad thing happens to a person, does that excuse bad things they did? Many serial killers had horrid, tortured childhoods, and they still committed serial murder.
I'm not saying it excuses the bad thing, but also the fact that she has powers doesn't make her a bad person inherently. So it's hard to digest that.
This is clearly
just because.
This is from the perspective of the powerless who have kind of been fear-mongered here. Like, they're scared of her and what she and people like her can do, and that is why she is guilty. And I think the judge is even scared of her, and that is why he chooses to ignore the three-strike law and put her in the birdcage, because they're scared of the things that she could do if she was introduced back into normal life, even on accident. What's to stop her from doing this to another person by accident, doing something she didn't mean to?
Yeah, and I unfortunately also I understand the fear of the legal side of it, but I'm a little less lawful than Ashley, and so sometimes I look at the law and I'm like, that's fucking dumb. And I think this is one of those situations where I'm like,
I think I'm not agreeing with what the legal system did here. They fucked Paige over. Every amendment in the human rights thing was like thrown off the window and kicked like it was a puppy, and they were like awful human beings that Rachel should murder.
Yes!
But
Rachel should hop in there and get justice for her.
But it's, at the same time, it's in line with what real people do when they're scared. The American, though wasn't really the American legal system, this was they're transported to British Columbia in Canada. It's for the prisoners. The legal system sentenced her to this because there's precedent for that. The legal system has perpetuated terrible things and done terrible things in the past with sentencing laws and just things they have done to innocent people who are not deserving of the sentences they got. And I think that would be the case here. Paige had a crappy lawyer, and she once sentenced to the birdcage. That's worse than death. She can't appeal on the fact that she had a crappy lawyer that screwed her over in every possible instance here. If she had a better counsel, she couldn't even speak to dismiss her counsel and say, I want a different person.
She could not speak.
She couldn't move her hands to write. She couldn't articulate any of her thoughts or feelings to the court. They made her, it's like wheeling in they might as well have just put a picture of her on a practice dummy and put it in the courtroom, because that would have been more effective at gaining sympathy out of a jury than what they made her look like.
They made her look scary. They made her look scary. And even the vast majority of people who commit crimes, they get the chance to pretty themselves up a little bit before they go into the courtroom, because appearance does have an effect on decisions. And they made her look even more scary.
Yeah.
And I feel like in the real world, there has, at least in our world, I don't know much about the worm world yet. We've only just now gotten this perspective into the legal system. I think there should have been a fight for the government to spend this stupid money, because they're like, it would be impossibly expensive to keep you subdued in the correct way we would need to. And so we're going to send you the birdcage. That's inhuman and horrible. And, there's perspective on people. They literally talk about how women in the birdcage pimp other women out inside the birdcage. So they're like, yeah, we're just going to send you there.
Yeah.
Inhuman and horrible.
It's bad what happens here. But it happens. We have to move forward a little bit. From the transportation there, Bakura tries to escape. Doesn't work, because by the time they get there, it's just a mechanical hand run by the world's best tinker, Dragon.
which is super badass, but also a name used for a villain in our in a campaign we've run, and so I already like that name.
Oh, that's right. I did use dragon as a name. Unintentionally. It's from a group of animal-themed supervillains. Anyway, Dragon in this version is a superhero who designed the birdcage, who's given the PRT lots of their technology, who's basically made a lot of things that are accessible to, as Bakuda puts it, regular schmoes, to put things together. She's pretty cool. But
pretty cool.
she puts it in the birdcage, and she feels bad for Paige. She even says, I reached out to the governor, to the DA, to the judge to try to get something happened, and nothing worked. I'm sorry it wasn't enough, but I still have to do my job.
Which is a sucky position to be put in.
It's very sucky. But you do also, you're glad that Dragon's the one running the show, because she puts Paige in a cell block and gives her advice, and it's like, hey, the person who's run by this is a super feminist. If you play into her ideology, she'll keep you safe, and no one will touch you. Ever. And also, all the stuff that was keeping Paige's powers sealed off before she was being transported into the birdcage has been removed. So once she's down there, she'll be able to use her powers. She doesn't seem like this sort of person to abuse it, but she'll be able to. So she always has that card. But the cell blocks are like ruled over like territory by different powerful parahumans. Some of who were from Brockton Bay, some of who aren't. And it serves to expand the world a little farther. And it shows that in the birdcage, there's still a society developed. They've had to be, because, as Dragon put it, there's like luxury goods delivered. And if someone attacks it and destroys it, I can't fix it. The luxury goods are gone. If one of you ruins it, you ruin it for everyone. And that purposely sets up, with the cell blocks and the way this is run, like territorial mindset. You are with your cell block, ride or die, and you are determined to have a tenuous peace with other people in the cell blocks. So you can like have these things you want. So nothing will ever get to the point where the prisoners are united and they'll be able to pose a united front against the outside world. Because I'm sure with probably hundreds of parahumans in the birdcage, they could unite and figure something out with all the different abilities. And then to follow that, it keeps them down. She set it up in such a way that shows that she's not just good with machines, but is good at reading how humans react and interact to each other.
And I find it amazing that she was still able to have sympathy for. I'm sorry. I find it amazing that she's still able to have sympathy for Paige after she's probably had to assign every single one of these villains to their cell block. She's had to deeply understand how this place is going to break you as a human being. And a lot of people would have trouble doing the regular human emotion thing after that becomes your job. Your job is to destroy people.
Yeah, so. And I think Dragon's really interesting because she clearly still has humanity. She still has a good heart. She's still a hero, even after being put in charge of handling some people like Paige, I'm sure, and some of the worst like humans that like parahuman society has ever generated. Anyway, the perspective shifts halfway through the interlude to switch from Paige to Lung, who has made a decision. He's going to see Bakuda, and not to play nice. There's only 4 ways to survive in prison, according to Lung, and he doesn't like the first 2 options. So he's picked 3 and 4. Kill someone, and be a madman by killing his subordinate, Bakuda, who has other people supposedly protecting her. And the chapter ends on an ominous note of Bakuda being like, I'll puncture a hole in the wall and we'll both die. And Lung going, you're not quick enough to stop me. She's like, you want to bet? And he did. He did, in fact, bet.
Bet.
We didn't get the outcome to that, but it's assumed either one or both of them are dead.
I hope both.
We can hope both, right? We can hope that it's just Paige living it up after that.
Yeah. Especially if Bakuda and Lung were taken out of there, Paige is a wild card. No one knows what she has up her sleeve, and as long as she keeps it kind of close to the cuff, that would be helpful for her in this situation. But Bakuda has a big mouth, so it'd be good if Bakuda was taken out. Lung probably wouldn't say anything. He doesn't give a shit.
Yeah,
but
either way, Bakuda's dead. Either Lung kills her or Bakuda killed both of them.
And we can hope for both of them, because Lung's not a good person either.
Lung is not a good person. He's marginally better than Bakuda, because he's not completely crazy. He has a logical thought process. Bakuda doesn't have that. Going for her.
Just angry sighs for Bakuda.
Angry sighs for Bakuda. Anyway, that is the summary of Arc 6. What did you think of that overall, now that we've gone over everything?
I think it got so much worse. And they said that at the beginning of this. It just got so much worse. Got so much worse on Taylor's front. It
really escalated.
Yeah. Now I know more about the world, and I'm not particularly happy with it.
Anyway, let's go through our normal things. Do you have any theories to talk about? I thought you had one that we vaguely talked to each other about.
Yeah. I don't think Coil is actually the one in charge.
You think he's like playing second fiddle to someone?
Yes, I think it, and I don't think that because of anything I've heard in the story. I just think as a reader, it'd be interesting narratively to have that
It would also like stretch out the plot a bit here. But who do we think it's someone?
Much plot.
Do we think it's someone we've met already?
I don't think so. I think it's someone bigger, badder, and more sinister that we haven't heard from yet.
Maybe
like someone likely that we
not even in the city.
Yeah,
it's interesting.
Ooh, it'd be so interesting if it was a protectorate,
like Dragon.
Oh, yes, that'd be so cool.
I think it would be cool if it was Dragon. She seems cool. I'd be fine if our overlord was Dragon.
If it really was Dragon, though, do you think she would have actually put Paige in the? Because if she knew she had that amount of sway,
she has to maintain some level of like appearances either way.
Yeah,
she's a hero. She can't change the law and the legal system. They're separate.
Do you think that she probably built in fail safes for like inciting her own versions of justice after she inevitably makes this one city fall, and then hopefully continues the domino effect?
Are you saying are we on the Dragon? Dragon is the real supervillain theory.
I mean, we can talk about it. I actually don't think that.
I have enough confidence in Dragon. I don't think she's omnipotent, but she's the best tinker in the whole world. And tinkers have been pretty impressive so far.
Yeah.
So
if she doesn't, yeah, I actually don't think it's her. Realistically, I think it's someone with a more sinister.
Realistically, I don't think so either. But I like the theory.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting. Anyway, let's go over the Undersiders after this chapter. What do you think of Taylor?
I think that Taylor's about to start getting some, wink wonk. And I think it was a good, bad, good decision to leave the house, the situation she was in. A regular human child should not be trusted with that ability, speaking from past experience. The ability to just be like, okay, I'm out of here, and then jet. I do think that because of Taylor's ability and the way she can financially support herself, especially now, in the situation she was in at school, leaving was probably the best decision for her, because her dad was going to make her go back to school, and I don't think Taylor could have handled that without snapping and murdering her classmates.
I think the best decision would have been joining the wards. Back when this all
Join-
started.
At the beginning, it's too late now.
It's too late now. But can we imagine, just close our eyes and imagine a better time? She's in the woods. She has friends. It's great. That aren't supervillains.
I would have wanted it to be after her first experience with Clock Blocker, because I think that would have been an interesting, like, hey,
Dynamic.
I don't like you. Yes.
That would have been a fun rivalry to set up. Anyway, we could imagine a better time where Taylor joined the wards, but that's not reality.
Someone write an AU.
I'm sure it exists. Anyway, Brian
has the hots for Taylor.
we hope.
We think.
We're like Lisa. We probably know.
I ship it. I ship it hard.
It's so great. Just the amount of tallies of Taylor just looking him up and down. And he's like trying really hard to be a good older brother to his wild, crazy sister.
Wild, crazy sister. I feel so bad for him. That has to be a very difficult one to deal with. Especially, he's a teenage boy.
He's still a teenager and he's trying really hard to be an adult. A supervillain adult. I mean, if nothing else, this chapter made me like Brian a little more.
I really do like Brian. And I really do like Aisha's social worker as well, who was like, well, I would really love to put her in this position. Just make sure she feels like it's home.
Yeah, that was good advice. It felt harsh, but it was honest. And that's more of what Aisha needs, which is
Harsh
should
and honest.
always be the social worker's concern.
Yes. Put on pants and a full-ass t-shirt. You're not going to your movie because you're a brat. That's exactly what Aisha needs.
Anyway, moving on, Lisa.
Her did not change much. I love her. She's awesome.
I love that she
Scary.
ships Brian and Taylor too.
I dislike that she disrespected Taylor's privacy and went through her phone. Not cool with that.
That's a very Lisa move, though.
Yeah.
Taylor didn't even, seem vaguely offended by it.
Yeah. And it's also, probably not as big of a deal to Taylor because it's not like her. Like my phone, if someone took and went through my phone, I'd be a little more ticked than Taylor because everything is on there. Taylor has only the phone numbers of the Undersiders, and what we've talked about with
she owns 3 phones, and they're all burner phones. She's never owned a phone before the Undersiders, or she did, and it just wasn't hers anymore. So because of everything.
Yeah.
I love Lisa. We're the Lisa. I'm the founder of the Lisa fan club.
I think you were a little late to that party, dude.
We are a little late. We're a little late, but I'm the founder of the Anecdotal Adventures Lisa fan club.
Anecdotal Adventures official Lisa fan club. They have meetings every Tuesday and Friday. No, Fridays are booked every Tuesday and Thursday. Thursdays are also booked. Critical Role. We can't do that.
You can't do that.
Yeah. So every Tuesday and Wednesday morning.
Yes, and let's see. Rachel, I don't think enough happened to change opinions of Rachel. She's just...
No, I just love her more because now we know that she has little pet foster homes set up that she's like, I don't have enough time to take care of them all, which makes me love her.
Rachel's great. Rachel's great. The one we learn the most about is Alec in this chapter. We don't get details, but he was a previous supervillain in a different city. He ran away to Brockton Bay and changed his name and the way he operates.
Which leaves me to consider, is he a little more powerful than he's letting on?
We might find out, won't we? I don't know. He seemed pretty powerful earlier when he was just making Miss Militia vomit.
Yeah, but earlier he'd been like, oh, I can only make them trip and stumble and blah, blah, blah. I don't buy it, Alec. I don't buy it.
We'll have to look more suspiciously at Alec later, but opinions on him as a character.
He's quippy, and now he's quippy with a mission. So go him.
Go him. The story has brought us over to the dark side. We love all the Undersiders now. Any negative opinion we had of any Undersider is gone.
I just hope I hope beyond hope that Taylor sticks to it and that she continues to genuinely want what's best for the city as a whole. And she doesn't really fall into the villain mentality of the money, 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 or power, power, power.
Yeah, as long as she's focused on the greater good, we can root for Taylor. But as soon as she starts backsliding into the I need to do what's best for me and me alone, we're getting to danger territory.
Which I unfortunately feel is far too close.
Yeah. But anyway, any last thoughts on Arc 6 Tangle?
Silent internal screaming.
Okay. Well, this has been Anecdotal Adventures. I'm your host, Ashley, and this is my co-host.
I'm Cassidy, and remember to always stay fair.
And we will see you all next time.